Yes, yes. Hello, welcome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. As you're coming into the room, drop your name, where you're joining us from, your role, if you can. Tell us a little bit about your PBL experience. I know. He's like, okay, did I come in here to do? Yep, we want you to be interactive. We want you to join in and get involved in the conversation. I'm going to put that up on the screen for you so you can have some guidance. Share your name, where you're joining us from, your role, and your PBL experience, and anything else you feel that you want to share on this great Wednesday night. Get it, T. Yep. She's all in. Welcome, Gemma. I see Gemma from Australia. Julia from where are you from, Julia? Tell us. Mallory from New York. Yes. Molly from Cleveland. I see Hawaii. Kia, Florida. Yes, keep it coming. Keep it coming. Where are you guys joining us from?
Crystal in LA, kindergarten. All right.
I love the babies. Love the kindergarten teachers because I was not one. They have great patience. Great patience. Oh, goodness. A whole different scenario. That's right. That's right, folks. Welcome to our PBL Power Up series. And everyone see the screen? Share your name, place, where you're, that means where you're from, your role, and a little bit about your PBL experience and anything else that you would like to share.
Hi, I'm Melder from Guadalajara, Mexico.
Oh, wow.
And
awesome.
Ivy from the Philippines. Hi. And Melda from Guadalajara.
Uh-oh, they're making me excited. Much love and thoughts from Florida. Yes. Much love to you too. That was Brian. I thought that was about you see, Brian. It's all love. Eagle, Colorado. Welcome.
Oh, we have a couple of AI assistants. How sweet.
We welcome AI assistants too. Huh?
All forms of intelligence are welcome.
Right, right. Equity is in the room. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Share your name. It's slowing down. I see way more folks in the room than I have in the chat. Let's be interactive. I want this to be a space where we just have a lot of fun. So drop your name. Tell us where you're from. And what is your role? I see you clapping, Talena. What do you see? I see Albuquerque, New Mexico.
I see someone from California about to start their first PBL.
Oh, I see that. Oh, look at Louisville.
From Kentucky. Yeah,
I said Louisville. Did you hear me, Talena? I said Louisville. I didn't say Louisville. Give me a thumbs up on that one.
Louisville. Okay.
Congratulations, because I still do mess that up.
Awesome. I'm going to stop showing. We're going to get started in about 1 minute. Give a couple of more folks some time to come into the room. Don't forget, let's just get conversational in that chat. Where are you from? What's your role? What's your PBL experience? All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. Looks like we are ready to go. All right, the music can stop, but don't let that stop you from sharing your name, where you're from, where you're joining us from today. We welcome all of you, and we are so excited that you are joining us for our PBL Power Up Real Talk webinar on math in PBL. Can we just like give a rainfall, a clap, or something? Because I mean, this is the perfect topic, math and PBL. Yes, but first, let us introduce our PBL math experts that are in the room joining us today. I'm going to let Talena start us off. Introduce yourself, please.
I am so excited to be here with you guys, whether it's night or morning for you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Talena Norfar. I'm the Director of Math Curriculum here at PBL Works. I did PBL in my classroom from 2005 to 2023. And I have also been a part of PBL Works as a national faculty member before coming on full time. So I've also coached people a lot with PBL, and I'm so excited to tell you guys about my experience tonight.
That's what's up. My name is Brian Demerson from Houston, Texas. I am one of the lead national faculty, particularly focusing as a math specialist with PBL Works. Previous to that, I was in the classroom as an eighth grade math teacher for 10 years. About 5 years into that, I started taking my journey with project-based learning up until about 2021 when I became a math coach before I took this role about a year ago with PBL Works. So we about to get into it, man. My math folk, we about to really have some good conversation here today.
Thank you, Talena and Brian. I'm going to introduce myself. I am Dr. Lucretia Terrence. I am the Director of District Engagement here at PBL Works. So excited to be with you. And I am your co-host, one of your co-hosts tonight. I'm going to turn it over to John.
Hi, folks. I'm John Larmer, your other co-host for this presentation. And I'm currently the senior fellow at PBL Works, and I've been with the Buck Institute for Education for a long time. Good to be here with you. Glad you're all here.
So we're going to start off by sharing just a little bit about PBL Works for those who may be new to our world. At PBL Works, our exclusive focus is project-based learning. Why? Because we feel PBL advances educational equity and empowers youth furthest from opportunity. We really believe that it's transformative for all kids, all students. Through PBL, students get to engage in learning that's truly deep, long-lasting, and relevant to the challenges that they face in their own lives and the world that they would ultimately inherit. And so our services and our tools and research is really truly designed around building capacity of our K through 12 teachers to design and facilitate quality project-based learning. And so I'm going to also share with you that we are all current and former educators with PBL experience, with lots of excitement, but with deep respect for the teachers that are still in the field, and some of us are still in the field ourselves. So let's take some time to frame our experience that we will have in our session today. Throughout today's experience, you will have the opportunity to hear from our math PBL experts about their math experiences in the classroom when it comes to project-based learning. We're going to be sharing some strategies as we did before, and just some tools that you can use tomorrow, right? And that's the exciting part. Some tools that you can use tomorrow, some strategies to get you started with PBL. And for our experts, or our very experienced PBL math teachers, and educators, I should say educators, because we have things for the teacher, we have things for the instructional coach, we have things for the curriculum designer, and also for the school and district leaders. You thought I left somebody out. Nope. We are speaking and talking to everyone today. So we want you to take away something new from our discussions that will help you in your class.
Okay. Lucretia, if you could share the vision statement slide. All right. I thought I would just give you a little background on our organization and our vision for project-based learning. Um, our PBL works, our vision is for all students, especially Black and Brown students, to engage in high-quality project-based learning, to deepen their learning and achieve success in college, career, and life, wherever they may go. And we know that students, and research shows this, students who experience high-quality PBL will develop both the content knowledge and the success skills like communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. They will also develop a stronger sense of self and start to see how they can contribute to their families and communities by applying their knowledge and success skills in ways that make an authentic difference. At the heart of our work is the gold standard model for project-based learning. We really have a deep desire to support teachers in designing and implementing high-quality PBL. So this is our model for gold standard PBL. The diagram on the left shows the essential project design elements, and on the right are the project-based teaching practices. And many of the elements in both these frameworks are probably familiar to you, especially the teaching practices. There's a lot of overlap with traditional teaching. And we think that if students experience at least 2 gold standard projects per year that meet these criteria to varying levels, that's okay. If they experience 2 projects a year, that's a great start in being able to gain the benefits that project-based learning can bring. This next slide has to do with our equity levers. And we believe that there are many reasons to implement PBL, but we want to share part of our why by highlighting how we see PBL as key to creating more equitable learning environments and outcomes for students. We know, and research shows this, as I said, that when implemented with an intentional equity focus, PBL is a powerful way to work toward educational equity. And over the past several years, our team has been exploring the question, what are the specific mindsets and priorities that PBL teachers can leverage to provide equity-centered and impactful learning experiences for all students? So we established these 4 equity levers to amplify the power of the essential project design elements and the project-based teaching practices and ensure they're used in ways that reach all learners. All right, Lucretia.
Thank you, John. So now for the most anticipated part of the hour, and that's beginning our real talk. We're going to use this driving question. How can math teaching be enhanced through PBL? And we're going to start with Talena. And Talena, as you're thinking about that driving question, right? How can math teaching be enhanced through PBL, right? As a math teacher, how have you figured that out? Can you share a few examples, of projects that you've done in the classroom, or just when that word or when that question came up for you, what's the first thing popped in your mind?
Yes, I absolutely. Okay, so let me kind of like walk you guys through my life in a short switch. So starting in 2005, I want you to know that it is okay to not be okay. Like I had no clue what I was doing, and that is absolutely fine. And so, but I knew I was at a school that said they did PBL. Many of you don't probably remember this. Some of you, you may were only 5, but we used to roll the TV out and put a VCR tape. So it was about this big. You put it in this player, and that's like was how you played a video on part of your PD. Again, love all of you who were like 5 at that time when it happened. But I was a grown woman and I got hooked on seeing what PBL could do. But unfortunately, my school wasn't great at giving the support. Oh yay, shout out to everybody else who was grown at that time too. I love y'all. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start trying this. And again, for those of you who don't know, back in 2005, technology was not like it was. Like Google wasn't invented yet. So you were really using old antiquated systems to try and look up stuff. So I was trying to look up everything I had, and I realized that I can at least start. Like I'll just try something. And so the biggest thing I learned that I want you guys to do is you gotta have a public audience. So I did these 2 projects in my geometry classes. One was for my regular geometry section, and one was for honors. The regular geometry section was designing a house for a person, a family member I knew, but I didn't tell my kids it was a family member. So You ain't got to tell the kids that this is a family or friend that they're doing this for. But she had her house, but the honors kids was adding on to my house. Again, didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I needed some public pieces to kind of help this out. And what I discovered is kids rise beyond your expectations for public audiences, not for you. So even though you are not okay, I was not okay, your journey will be a lot better if you do that public audience. Now, fast forward a little bit to, again, I don't like really subtracting how long I was teaching, but let's go fast forward to the mid 2000s. And my journey there was realizing that I really needed to make that product tie very closely to the content so that I could drive the learning through it. One of the hardest parts about PBL is the product. Like, what do you have kids make? Know that it just needs to be something truly authentic to the subject, and like a building a house or even recipes or designing a game for transformation. Like, there's really authentic work, and that it pushes you to be able to help them have the work in the classroom be or surrounded around that project. Again, my first few years, I had the kids doing a lot of work outside of class because I didn't know how to work it. But by the mid 2000s, so 2010, 2011, I really realized how to connect that product to the math and drive it through that. Now, fast forward even more, right before I left in 2023, I realized I had to have a little bit of PBL all the time. Like, you only have to do a project twice a year for it to be really meaningful. Like, you don't got to do a project all the time. But I needed that culture. I needed my kids to always be thinking like that. I needed my kids to always be processing the way they did in a project. So I realized in that latter part of my school year how I can always have PBL light. And so if those of you who joined us last time, we talked about the article Dimmer Switch. That's kind of when I learned about the dimmer switch, and I started learning how to make every unit have a little bit of a PBL feel. Whether I was adding reflection more or whether I was getting the kids to question more, like the question formulation technique, I had learned about it, and I started using it to help my students with lessons. All of those things helped me become better. And that 2023 version of me would still be growing if I was still in the classroom in 2024. So the last thing I want to tell you is that you keep getting better. Like, it's no end to it. And you keep growing. And you still are also not okay. Like, COVID, I restarted. Like, I went back to ground zero. Those kids was different. I was different. One time I even just sat in the middle of the class. They were like, Miss Norfolk, are you all right? I was like, nope. And I was like, and it's okay not to be okay. So as you keep going with this, those three tips: the one, make a public audience, drive that learning through the product. And then last but not least, make sure that you keep that culture going. You pick one of them and you will be fine because you're going to just keep going and keep going and keep going. But of course, Brian even has better stuff to say.
Yeah, for the folk that was five whenever she was teaching, here we go. You
High
know,
five.
but no, all that was good, and really, I'll just pick up kind of where you left off from the standpoint it was a journey. Like when I first started teaching, kind of unlike Talena, I didn't walk in. I walked in, and we talked about this at the last webinar. I walked in with the philosophy that I wanted to prepare kids for life beyond the classroom. It's just that the manifestation in the reality of that, I really became a teach for the test type teacher. What I didn't realize then, though, is that kind of going, I'm literally going almost in reverse of Talena. What I didn't realize is that without even knowing anything about project-based learning, I was doing dimmer switch type of moves before I even knew what it was. Because my whole thought was, started off, this is kind of how I started in project-based learning. It started off from this perspective. I cannot teach 30 people all day, every time.
Say that
Some of
again.
y'all gonna have to take care of yourself. So John lifted up shared power. I was using shared power out of just sheer survival. Like, I'm not about to sit up here and answer 30 people questions, especially whenever your friend just asks me the same question. Go ask your friend. So that's how it started. So I really started this thing of taking care of yourselves, collaborating. This is even before I became into the aspect of project-based learning, which is probably why whenever I got into the grip of project-based learning, it made a little bit more sense to me. What project-based learning did though was, if I'm going to have you take care of yourself and if I'm going to have you collaborate, how can I make my instruction as meaningful as possible? And so whenever I got the concept that if I can throw this challenge and figure out how to make this challenge connect to you, now I got you hooked not on the idea of doing math, but on the idea of doing something meaningful. And that was the journey that I went through. That's my thing is create, use like knowledge of students and kind of create an idea, a challenge that you know they're going to connect with. My first project, I talked about it the last time, was kids was using linear relationships to figure out how much it will cost to hang a billboard. And so in the billboard was in October for breast cancer awareness. So everybody has a connection to an auntie, grandma, mama, somebody that has dealt with that. So they were immediately connected to that idea. And so that was kind of the thing. They were connected more so to how can we advocate for breast cancer awareness, not how can we learn linear relationships and not what's my grade. And so creating a challenge that's deeply meaningful to the students, that was once I took that and then learned how to really continue my journey of maximizing effective grouping and effective collaboration. That was kind of the journey that I went through. Now, let me talk about the transformation of that project because Talena did lift up that you're always growing and you grow as you begin to learn your students more. So I flipped that project a couple years later, and it was about again, it was about same thing, using linear relationships. And instead of advocating for breast cancer awareness, I had some students that had some different types of causes that they really came into my classroom on day one with. So just through conversation with them, I'm hearing their passions. I had a group that was super big on LGBTQ. I had a group, had a student whose nephew I found out had autism. So I flipped the project from advocating you creating money, or excuse me, went from using linear relationships to hang a billboard, but using linear relationships to make a profit to donate to a charity for a cause that you care about. So now I opened the door for more meaningful connections for this group of students that had deep passions about a lot of different causes. I launched it just so happens to be on the day. And one of the causes was drug awareness. And it happened to launch it unknowing to me on the day of one of my students, the anniversary of their uncle's death from overdosing on drugs. Didn't even know that. So now her and her group spent the whole class crying. That was the entry event in and of itself. Like they just spent the whole just crying on about the fact that this is really real to them, and they all had a connection. That might have been one of my most struggling groups leading up to that project. I didn't have to even think about that group being on task. So when you talk about really how does it enhance finding that meaningful connection, it allows students to really engage in the math. They got to learn the math anyway. I'm trying to give you a reason to want to learn it for something bigger than just passing a test.
Yes. So folks, real talk. How are these projects affecting students? John, I know you have a question. Do you want to ask your question before I jump in about productive struggle?
Sure. I was just wondering if it might be good for Talena and maybe Brian too to share a couple of examples of projects you've seen at the elementary level. And you guys are both secondary teachers, I think, right? So, and you gave us a couple examples of your projects, but maybe a couple from the elementary level for some of those folks.
Yeah, and Brian could definitely tag on to me because he was coaching a lot and kind of experienced this. It was such a need. So I completely forgot to say, and people get on me all the time. I am an author. I published 3 books on project-based learning in the math classroom. Grades K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 10. And I did a deep now. FYI, all my elementary people out there, mad love for you. I could not be with the same 30 people all day long. Like your grace and your patience is amazing. I could not pull it off. So but one of the things that I do, I stole from you all the time. Like all of your strategies, all your tips, I've always used in the secondary level. So shout out to the secondary people, always steal from elementary. And so one of the things from the K through 2 book, we have an experience that you do as a part of the project. And one of the things that's great about elementary is you compare math with other subjects. So like know how math and English are huge time blocks in an elementary schedule. So I would highly recommend you make a project where you tie those two together. And so at the K through 2, we made a project where the kids were basically making neighborhood libraries. So you know how there's this big trend of putting like a little lamppost in a neighborhood and you put books for people to like share. And so it was a great counting exercise and helping students understand grouping through the fact that they had to organize the books, but then also a literacy aspect in the fact that they were discovering which books were great for a particular neighborhood to do. So that's like a K through 2 example. Through 5 is nice in that you can take anything and make it. So, like a recipes project, kids usually have a great time getting with their family and friends and understanding like what food and how they make it. And that's a great fractions, that's a great decimals, great conversion project that you could do. But we also like you could do it at the middle school level too, like because they're still learning about fractions, learning about ratios, learning about proportions. So there's great topics and that happen in all grade levels. But I love those two the most for elementary. Just literally the tying of the literacy with the math, and then using those big math concepts like counting, fractions, decimals to drive the project.
Yeah, and just to kind of level that up, just and again ending where she just left off. So I'm taking recipes and now I can take that and how can we as a class or as a fifth grade class or as a third grade class run a profitable bake sale for the purpose of whatever, right? To pour back to the school, whatever it is. And so now I'm taking the same multiplying numbers, the same fractions, the same rational numbers, all that same division, all that stuff that I got to teach, those skills that would otherwise be skills that you feel like you have to drill and kill. Let me connect it to something meaningful. I can now bring in the community. I can bring in family recipes, things like that. I can bring in parents in them, and now we can figure out how can we work together to put on this bake sale that's both profitable, right, impactful, but then also really how can we represent our cultures in the midst of those recipes. So these are just ways that you can really do it. Again, bringing in multiple contents while still centering in a lot of the essential math that would otherwise fall flat on a worksheet.
Yes, yes, I'm with you. As a former math teacher myself, let's take it a little bit deeper. Thinking about the productive struggle of math, right? Uh-oh, you knew what's coming. I don't know how to learn math, and math is not my thing, and the skills of math, you got to talk about it, right? So there is a productive struggle that happens in math, particularly when it comes to the skills of math. How do I make sure that my students are still progressing with the skills they needed in a project-based learning scenario or a project, I should say? Like how have you guys experienced the enhancement, the increase? Like I can say it because I'm like trying not, I'm holding back. But I was one of those students that needed project-based learning in order for me to truly, fully pick up the skills and the strategies of math. But you talk about some strategies in your story about how did you help your students with the skills that they needed within the project?
Yeah, this is where it has to be bigger than a project. If we're just talking about 2, 3 week moments out of a year, we're really missing it. This is why Selena lifted up having a project-based light focus and or just really leveraging these equity levers that John talked about throughout the entire year. So the first thing is we have to now have a conversation on why do you think that you struggle at math? Like what? Tell me when did it happen? When did it happen? What grade did this happen? So let's
Fraction.
get to the root cause. right? Figure it out, when it happened. That's first thing. And then now I have to now create the safe space while letting this know you might have struggled before you got here, but Talena said it earlier, they will rise to the expectations and beliefs that I have for them as students. So I'm sorry for whatever happened pre-me. But what I do know is here, I'm going to love you, I'm going to push you, but I'm going to support you throughout your struggle upward. I don't mind you struggling, but you will struggle upward. And so now from then on, I'm finding ways to give you small wins. I don't care that you didn't get all 10 of them right. You got 2 of them right. And so now we go and move on. How can we get 3 of them right? And I'm creating these opportunities for you. I'm scaffolding these wins on top of wins on top of wins for you, creating that safe space whenever when you do struggle. It's not a crime to struggle. It is to struggle and stop. And so I would have that conversation with kids. We're going to struggle. We're not going to struggle and stop. We're going to struggle, but keep going. So then now when I bring in project-based learning, better yet, before project-based learning, I'm leveraging groups. Remember, it's not just me that can help you. Leverage somebody that you connect with, friend, something like that, that you can connect with. When we get into this project experience, again, if I can wrap something that you're so tied to, you're going to struggle not to understand math. You're going to struggle because you're trying to solve this issue that you so deeply cared about because I did the work to figure out how to connect to something that you really care about. And so those are the ways that I support the productive struggle, but I also have to let the kids know this is not an overnight success story. These are small wins stacked up on top of small wins on small wins. And this is not about just project-based learning, 2-3 week projects. This is throughout the year. Project-based learning just enhances that by connecting it to something meaningful at multiple times throughout the year. But this is a mentality as a teacher that I have to have for you, where I'm constantly giving you that agency to move forward, just not stop, but move forward, not just with me, but with your peers as well.
That was so good. Okay,
It's about to
but
get real today, y'all. It's about
I got,
come on, let's
I,
get into it.
I love it. I love it. But okay, and teachers, I love you. Brian, everything that Brian said is so beautiful. But I just want to add one thing about us, because we're not the only subject that people struggle in, but we're the only subject that don't have any other ways of helping them. We often act like there's only one way to solve a math problem. And so therefore they struggle never leaves because they got to do it exactly like this algorithmic way did. Like this one poor child that I just met when I was in Massachusetts this week. I love him and I'm glad he's gonna like the next math teacher because he met me. But he was absolutely hating his math teacher on this long division problem. He was like, I love addition. He said, I love subtraction. I love multiplication. He said, but I am so hating division. And he was like, they said that division is opposite of multiplication, but I'm not seeing how I could love division because I love multiplication, but I ain't liking this division. And nobody likes long division. Like that's not the only way to divide things, but he's getting set up. And Po Thing had 3 pages worth of these long divisions. So he's really, really fell into pain that he's about to do long division for 3 days. So I'm trying to help him. I'm also trying to balance, not trying to show him something else just in case again he has again a math teacher who's like, this is the only way I want you to do it. And thankfully, like I didn't, he didn't know I was a math teacher at first. I finally said, I said, do you like me? And he was like, yeah. I said, well, would you be upset if I told you I was a math teacher? He said, for what? Real? I was like, yeah. I was like, I am. So we have to, in a part of that, like, yes, they need to build their strength of the struggle, but we need to start learning other ways to help them solve a problem so that the struggle is not how to do this one way. The struggle is about thinking. There's nothing wrong with struggling on thinking, but it's a whole lot of struggle on trying to do a way. I will still probably die not vacuuming the house like the way my mother wants it vacuumed. But guess what? My house is vacuumed. There's a lot of different ways to still get something done, and we got to grow and start learning and go like join NCTM, get their newsletters, learn about other ways to teach the same concepts that we do, and don't get so caught up all the time on this one way. Math is much more vast than that. So, but yeah, that was okay. Woo, Brian, that was good. That was good.
One more time. So I don't, because I do want to lift this up because you said this, Talena, and it's about using, and there's an article that our colleague Jillian wrote that's going to be very applicable here. Yeah, kids struggle, right? But one way that we can support their struggle is really using the context that they come in with. If we can find ways to tap into I guarantee you that a kid might have never multiplied before he got to your class. But I guarantee you he's had to think with his mama and daddy on how, okay, if we have this many people coming, we need this much. Okay, but if we have this many people coming, we need to get another bag of chips. So I guarantee you they've had to do some patterns, some skip counting reasoning. So how can we bring in, as Jillian wrote, their funds of knowledge that they come into the classroom with, versus, as Selena said, versus teaching you my way or the way I learned it or my context. Let me teach you a way, but create space for multiple ways using what you're comfortable with. I don't care that you came into my classroom only understanding the area model for multiplying. That's good to know. We're going to stick with that. Since that's what you came in with and you can do that consistently, let's stick with that versus saying, forget all that what you did in elementary school. We about to teach you how to do it the abstract way. Right? No, no. Let's bring in their funds of knowledge, things and concepts that they come in from their culture and or previous grade levels, and use that to help them struggle upward.
That's real good. John, if I know you have we want to transition just a little bit. And we want to talk about how can instructional specialists and leaders support all of these wonderful things that you're talking about in the classroom. So as a coach, how do we bring these mathematical practices to life? Right? We have all these standards. How do we turn that to a project? But just basically, how do we bring the practices to life in a project?
Oh, this is so good. Okay, so this is something similar that I had said last time, but it really is true, and I've seen it so much as I go into classrooms. You really got to help people with just like one thing. Just help them focus on one thing, one element, one practice. Mm, Let them pick it. Let them decide what is the area that they really want to grow in. And I often have people think, well, what's something that's not working well? Like we ain't got to touch what you really like to do. What is not doing well? And let's look at how we can approach that. And then start brainstorming those strategies. If they choose reflection, or if they choose critique and revision, or if they choose sustained inquiry, like what are some different like, PBL Works has you join for free. My PBL Works has a ton of resources for every element you could pick and say, hey, well, we want to try this. Want to try this? Let's try it for the next month. See how it goes, and then change directions according to what is happening. But remember, like every time you do something for the first time, it doesn't go well. It's nothing wrong with the process. You just are now not trying to learn it. Like this is the only place that I have, and I wasn't always a teacher. So FYI, I started teaching in 2005, but I wasn't 21. I was much older. But like this was the one place that I thought it was so interesting how people needed to be perfect immediately. Like that's not real. Like you're gonna mess it up. It's not gonna go well. Have like same with the kids. They're not gonna do it all well, right? But analyze it, rework it, try it again. That's just so huge to start small. Don't make them pick up the whole apple. Those who ready to do and run with the whole PBL, let them run. But those who are like, oh, I'm a little nervous about it. Let's take it one element at a time. But Brian even got better tips. He's been a coach forever.
Yeah, nah, the main thing is everything you said, Talena. The couple things I would add is being a thinking partner with ideas, right? A lot of times, how do I support my teachers with helping them think about the content beyond just their classroom, right? So, what are some real life connections that we can make? How can I help them realize that this standard might be something that we can really uh, go? It's already a high priority standard per the district or our campus anyway. How can we really provide some real life driving question to this particular content? That's one thing. Second thing is just to really echo what Talena said, and this is what I talk about when I talk with teachers, just in the work that I do now. The best project is the project you do. We can stay on the edge of the bridge forever. You got to jump at some point, and it's so much easier to reflect after doing it than before than just thinking about it all the time. That's why I tell the kids, even though it's the same concept as a teacher, it moves into my work now as a coach. Go get it wrong. we can have a much better conversation if you go get it wrong than you thinking about doing it to begin with. So just go get it wrong. Go do it. We can have a conversation after you do it, but how do I create those conditions as a coach to do that? Two things. I had two principals recently tell their campus, this is after I did some services with them. This is going to be a year of learning. I'm focused on you just learning and doing. We'll figure out the results along the way. And they just completely deaded all the anxiety in their on their campus, and now their campuses are doing project-based learning, and now they're having this actual achievement that they were achieving anyway, just by creating those conditions of safety for teachers to be able to hop in there and try it. Just do it. We can figure out how to reflect and how to make it better after you do it.
Hmm. I had a question. Some teachers who are new to PBL might wonder, how to get started. So what advice would you give people, math teachers who are kind of new to PBL, for getting started? What advice would you give? Maybe some lessons you learned when you were first starting out too, mistakes you made.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kick it
First
off.
thing, yeah, first thing, just do it. Like legit, just go and do it because your heart's already in the right place. And that's the hardest thing. For me, it was the hardest thing for me as a teacher. It's the hardest thing for me in life is I fall in love with perfection so early. And sometimes you just have to go out there and, as we say, show this unfinished work or show this sketch, and be vulnerable. Because in truth, being honest, it actually connects you more with students than providing a model of perfection. And so the times whenever I just went out there and tried, I remember my first project and or just certain just as Tulane said, just kind of inquiry experiences that I might have just thought of that I never tried before. I'm in there. I'm letting the kids know, yo, I'm just trying this. I really think this is going to be a good idea. They connect to the vulnerability with me. They were in it with me. I'm modeling. Somebody just put that in the chat. I'm modeling risk taking. So then why is that important? Because now whenever they're in this project experience and they're tackling difficulty and they're tackling uncomfortability and they're having to tackle this first time ever presenting, I can say, I'm doing it too. Like I went out there and did it just like you. And so we're really in this thing together. So I know exactly how you feel. That's why I'm not creating these death life or death consequences for it, but more so you can see me model taking risk and vulnerability. So now you feel more compelled to do it. Once I learned to stop trying to be perfect in front of my kids and I hopped into project-based learning vulnerably, they connected with that and it had a profound effect beyond the project experience because that became the motto in the class of just taking risks and trying things, which is what we want kids to do anyways in the math class.
Yeah. Oh my God, you said it best. And I just would add, take the risk, but use somebody else's stuff. Like, do not try to design our list on your own. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Like we mentioned in the chat already, my PBO Works has some great start, like projects with the skeletons in it. You can rearrange, change things up, but you already got the bones. Don't be trying to think like, and again, you can, it's wonderful. Those of you who like, oh, I got an idea. Like absolutely, like you can run with that, but at the same time, still somebody else's recipe. Like go ahead and use some tried and true things, make it better. Like I am so appreciative still of Charity's. She had a project that I got from her, Parabolas for Profit. It saved me because I didn't have a clue of how I was going to teach quadratics. But I love her project, and me and my student intern worked and figured it out, the pieces, and it was the best ever. And for the first time, I wasn't having to try to create everything. So try it using somebody else's stuff.
Yes, absolutely. So as John asked he's coming on to ask his last question. If anyone has any questions, we're coming up on Q&A in about 2 to 3 minutes. So if you have that burning question that you want to know about math and PBL, now's the time to ask. And we will answer those questions on demand, right? Love it. Oh, somebody was like, yes, me. Give us 1 minute, Jermaine, and we're going to why don't you, could you please drop it in the chat? That would be very, very helpful for us. Drop it in the chat. Thank you so much. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I said another question that I know a lot of people ask. A lot of math teachers are afraid of test scores, of course. So what do you say to people about who are worried about, if I use PBL, are my students still going to do well on those tests?
Oh, Brian, you got to kick us off
I was
because
there. It was
you have a
me.
funny one.
It
You have
was
a funny
me.
one.
I was the guy. I was the guy. I told my admin that exactly. I said, what we not gonna do is do this dog and pony show. That was project-based learning in my mind. And then we get to this test, and these kids don't pass this test, and you looking at me like I didn't do something. Like that's not what we gonna do. And that was my thought process early on. That was honest. I'm vulnerable in that. That was really my, and I hold to that because it connects me to the fear and the reality of our teaching practice, of our just the teaching reality. And so the first thing that I had to realize was, um, if I can just kids kids creating and kids creating and thinking critically, it connects them to an experience. And it's that Velcro experience that drives their recall more than just this rote practicing. Everything that I've remembered in life, I remember it because I could connect it to an experience that I really had. It was told to me Velcro moments, right? And so once I really saw that, and the reality of it is, and I had to break it down to teachers like this, if a kid can think about how to create a profitable opportunity to donate to a charity, they got to coordinate, they got to go through the thinking and the math of creating this profit and then getting this profit and then figuring out how to donate this thing to this charity. And then organizing with this charity and then pitching this plan to get funding. I think that kid or anybody can pass the test. Like the thinking that has to happen there is so much deeper and higher than any question that these kids can have on this test. And then what it allowed me to do, because I'm want to talk about the test results, it allowed me to have these conversations with students. Like, y'all, when you get around this test, why are we scared of a test when we've done things so much bigger than this actual thing? So that was one of the things. And then two, yes, you still have to do your interventions. Yes, you still have to, and I'm sure Talana speak that. Yes, you have to do your interventions. Yes, you still have to do your reteaching. Yes, you still have to do these things. But I connected back to this meaningful experience. And that was something that I didn't know was going to happen. That was me going in there, not believing in project-based learning. And when I saw that result, and I saw how these kids were connecting to the actual concept and the idea of what they were producing, the content produced so much more over time on tests.
Yes, yes, yes.
And this was in about a 90% low SES campus.
Thank you for sharing that, because that was one of the questions that I see in the chat. Someone wanted to know how to tie PBL with algebra in general, but particularly in Algebra 1, where preparation for EOC is constantly necessary. So again, how do we make sure we have the skills covered for the test? It says, especially with learners that struggle with math to begin with. And then I'm gonna also share with, I'm just gonna let the cat out the bag just a little bit. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about standards and PBL. How do we make sure that the standards are aligned to our projects? So make sure you come tomorrow. We can go deeper with that statement that Brian started. So with Jermaine had a question. He says, how do you factor in other sections of math curriculum that has to be covered for the semester and for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so we mentioned it earlier about the dimmer switch approach. Like you use that with your regular curriculum. Whatever, whether it's a textbook or whether it's like a pacing guide that you have with your district. You figure out project-based learning is done on really heavy, meaty math concepts. So it's not on something like what's a variable. Like small topics like that, you just do your normal curriculum, add an element to it. So again, add a reflection more when you're doing the unit, or add a particular critique and revision process. Like we have in our curriculum that we've made this thing called rough draft sharing, where kids, before they get too far in their thought process, they talk it out with someone else, and that person questions their thinking. That enables the kid to further understand the concept that they're learning. And it can be done anytime, anywhere. And so doing small switches like that with your regular curriculum is key. Because if you don't and you switch to like and try to do a project, it will be hard because they're not used to doing a protocol, or they're not used to thinking at that kind of high of a level. So you have to still sort of incorporate some elements with your regular curriculum. And then once again, that curriculum comes to a heavy part. So like, give you an example, in my Algebra 2 class, the first unit was on systems. I didn't really need to make a project out of systems. Like, this was, again, a review. They're just now learning how to do 3 systems instead of 2. But the unit after that was quadratics. So that's when I did the parabolas for profit project. It piggybacked on linear equations, but it also added the quadratic spin. And then I went again back to my regular curriculum with rational numbers. So you can keep going with your normal curriculum piece. Just remember those elements.
Hmm.
Oh, this chat is blowing up.
I got a question here in the chat from, let's see.
Yeah, one from
Oh yeah,
Mike.
from Michael. He asked more about the sort of a nitty gritty question, nuts and bolts question about timing of how you teach math and PBL. He said, do you generally dedicate whole class days to a project, or expect students to do it largely at home, or dedicate a few minutes per day, or what?
Yeah, you want to dedicate the day, your class time, to the project. So your project experience is based off of student capacity, teacher capacity, and time. That's and then the standard, right? The pacing of this actual standard. And that's what Talani was kind of alluding to. Pick a standard that's going to take some time, so it allows you to kind of stretch out a little bit, but you definitely want to try to utilize the class time, because one, that's how you build the collaboration, that's how you start to build the communication, things like that. Now teams can organize and do things at home, but you don't want it to be like you teach, and then they go home and do that, because now it becomes whoever has the best parents. Typically, that's how the project turns out. And so that's the reverse of what we're trying to accomplish. And so to do that, you really got to set these conditions early in the year. So if we're in October, perfect. That's perfectly fine. I'd be starting tomorrow, and my first thought is, what am I doing for these kids that they can do for themselves? I got to start there. And I got to start pulling my hands back away from them and creating small opportunities for them to really work together, because that's how you build some of these habits to where now project-based learning can fit throughout the class day, because you don't want to have to be able to spending all your class day trying to teach them how to get in groups, not in the project experience. I took care of that whenever I wasn't in the project experience, so then when I got in there, I can actually do it in the 45 or 50-minute class day that I had.
I feel like I just need to put you guys on the stage and just let you just have it, because the questions that are coming up in the chat, I'm trying to keep up. And I know time is at hand as well. And so as we have your questions, and when we send out a follow-up, we will have some resources and articles that speak to every question that's in the chat. We have some resources that can help push us through. We do have time only, guys, only for one more question if it's less than 30 seconds. Brian, Talana, do you think you can make that happen?
I got it.
I
It's
mean,
gonna
I'm
be quick.
answering
We
Nicolette
got
right
it.
now, and I'm literally saying you can do it in special ed.
Yeah,
Do
That's
the
let's
the
same
go.
one,
thing we
because that's the
saying.
question. People always ask, can I do this in special ed?
Matter of fact, you know what? This is so funny to me. I They are the best. Like, when I've done projects, every special population that we discount is better at it than everybody who's honors or like extra. My ELL students do better in project-based learning. My SPED students do better in project-based learning. My undiagnosed people with all kind of conditions do better in project-based learning. Like, it is made for all kids, all kids.
Okay.
Everybody is better
Yes.
when
Why
they
do
do
you suppose
project.
that is, Talana?
I could tell you that
Oh,
because these kids, these kids that are intelligent, that have context, that have depth, that have experiences, they have been losing the game of school in its traditional sense. So now you have to understand the moment that you give them something different, they're going to be triggered in a good way because, oh, wait, this is different than something I've ever seen to begin with. I might have a chance at this. Now I can use my just my charisma. Now I can use my critical thinking. I can use my common sense versus me having to fit into a system that has never worked for me to begin with. That's why these kids do much better because they're not trying to be the smartest. They're like, I actually have a chance to win at this. This isn't a worksheet. This isn't a test. I might can do this. And so they have a tendency to, they're going to be able to hop into this thing all the more because it's different for them. And they feel like they got a chance to really win in this.
All right. Thanks, guys. That's great to hear. PBL for all, as someone said in the chat,
Yes, yes.
and especially certain students like that. All right. Lucretia, you want to wrap us up?
I'm hesitant, but we do have to wrap this up. But the conversation, as last time, continues tomorrow. As a matter of fact, same time. I expect to see all of your wonderful names since I can't see your faces. Tomorrow, it's about standards and PBL. I saw a lot of questions that were surrounding that. We will have our PBL experts in that area, which would be Ari and Candace, and I see them in the room supporting us on tonight. So come back and just listen to this great conversation around how do I keep my project aligned to the standards and making sure that my PBL is true to what my students need to know. So don't miss out. If you want to know more, if you want to learn more, of course, go ahead and take your phones out and capture that QR code. For teachers, there is learning available for you. If you want to know more about how do I become a school partner and really truly engage in this work a little bit more at a school level, or do you want to make this a sustainable work district-wide? Go ahead and click that QR code as well. It will take you to all things that you need to know to book a conversation with the next person. Let's get social. Tell us how tonight went. Go on social media, tag us at PBL Works on Instagram, on Facebook. I think we're on almost all social media platforms. Reach out to us. Let us know how much you enjoyed tonight. Again, we thank you guys for joining us tonight. And we are truly, truly excited about your excitement for PBL. We have one more thing to engage us tonight. John is going to close us out with one little task.
Yes, if you could please drop in the chat one word to say how you're feeling about math and PBL right now. How are you feeling about PBL and math right now? One word, please. Empowered, excited, motivated, inspired, validated. Hey, good stuff.
Oh, John, I love that. Keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Validated, hopeful, excited, motivated, excited, encouraged, interesting, invigorated.
That's a good word.
Better, better. Empowered, informed, trepidatious. Ooh, go for it, Michael. Informed. All right.
Beautiful.
I love it. I love it. Let's keep the conversation going. We will see you guys on tomorrow night. You guys want to just give them a good PBL clap? Are y'all ready? If everybody off mute, 1, 2, 3. We tried.
All right.
Love you guys.